Hey, Paulina.
Hey, Lars. We're back,
Happy New...
baby.
Yeah, we're back. We're back. Christmas holidays, man. Is it 3 weeks since we recorded the last one?
Yes, it's been 3 weeks.
Fuck. Oh, shit. I cursed, I know. We're starting out 2026 really bad or really good, depending on...
I like it if I'm not the only one swearing in this podcast.
Yes, I know. That's why I have to pick up my swearing game in 2026. It's going to be my New Year's resolution, right?
Your girlfriend's going to love that.
Because she always keeps saying that it's only intelligent people that swears. So I need to be more intelligent in 2026. So, yeah.
Ooh.
And it's so much backfiring on her because she has like a 12-year-old daughter. And she really starts swearing a lot. And every time she says like, hey, you're swearing. She's like, Mom, only intelligent people swears.
Yep.
And backfires so badly.
She had that coming.
Yes. So, Paulina, tell me any news on the apartment hunt. You guys have been on an apartment hunt, right?
Yes, we have been on a forced apartment hunt. We have been kicked out of our apartment, unfortunately, because it was sold and the new owners want their daughter to move in here. And so unfortunately, we have to move out of the place we've lived in for 11 years. So we're a bit heartbroken. And it's not been easy to find an apartment because obviously we want to stay close to our area where our friends all are. And we also want a beautiful apartment because I work from home, so I spend a lot of time at home, and it's important to me to live in a nice place. And that has not been easy, and especially over the Christmas holidays, because I mean, I get that, right? If you own an apartment and you want to rent it out, you're not going to be necessarily in town or in the mood to show your apartment to interested parties over Christmas holiday, right? I get that. So there was nothing for us to do in order to hunt an apartment throughout the Christmas break. And it drove me crazy. Because I couldn't control the situation in the slightest. Oh, and I couldn't drive it forward. And if I have to change my living situation, then I want to drive that situation. And I couldn't drive it. And it drove me nuts. But hopefully, we're going to get the lease for a really stunning apartment later today. So here's hoping, knock on wood.
Fingers crossed.
This is going to happen, and then we can move in a couple of weeks. So it's going to be fun. Yeah, I get to do all the things that I love most: painting walls, decorating a new apartment. I love that shit. Love it.
All the things that I hate, but that's okay.
And you, how about your shoulder?
Oh, yeah. So for everybody listening in, if they didn't listen like the last episode last year, I had a pretty big shoulder surgery. So they actually went in I have a scar here on my shoulder, and then I have 3 holes because they did I don't know what's the English word for it. They go in with these what's
big
it
needles.
No, what did they call the one that you look in through if you want to look long? What's the word? I don't know. Binoculars.
Binoculars, or I think it's called laparoscopy or something like that.
Maybe.
I'm definitely butchering that word. So when they have little cameras on
yes.
I think it's bigger needles and they have little small cameras on top of it, right?
Exactly.
And they can also have pincers on top of those thingies, and then they can cut so that you don't open up the full thing.
And they did 2 of my tendons were broken, so they fixed those. They actually cut off my bicep and sew it on another place. Whoa. And then they filed something off one of my bones. So it was pretty big, and it was. I was actually say I'm very happy right now. The first night was a nightmare. We had to call the doctor to ask if I could take extra morphine. The pain was so bad. I was sweating. It was so
I'm
bad.
so
But after that, it actually been going like really, really fast. Except until Sunday, where I was about to fall. So I reached out for like a door frame to not fall, and then I heard like a pop in my arm, and I was really afraid that it kind of just popped off the bicep. But I went to the surgery, and again, I'm so grateful for living in a country with a really good healthcare system. We
Yes.
don't pay for it. If somebody's listening in, they don't know how it is in Denmark, we don't pay for that shit. It's completely free. And I just called them and said, like, I have this. And the nurse said, like, oh, that sounds serious. Let's see if we can find something within the next 42 hours. And boom, next day I was at the hospital. He looked at it. He said, like, don't worry about it. So I am actually all good.
You Danes just have this living thing kind of figured out. You know how to take care of your people.
But Paulina, again, like,
amazing.
and again, like, okay, let's do this really quick because this is not the topic of the podcast today. So in Denmark, there's a tendency to kind of talk bad about the healthcare system. And there is stories, you know, that somebody gets lost between the cracks, right? And they get a really bad experience and maybe even die from it because they like was misdiagnosed or something like that. But I would also say, like, for me, I go to my doctor. I said to her, like, okay, the pain is consistent in my shoulder. A normal scan is not enough. I need an MR scan. I need it. Half an hour later, I'm not even home from the doctor. In Denmark, we have like digital posts, like everything from the state comes into something called digital post. There is like an email saying like, hey, Lars, you have an appointment 2 days later. 2 days later at the hospital. I come to the hospital. He does some exercises on me. He looks at me and says like, yes, you need an MR scan. 5 days later, I'm in the freaking MR scan machine. 2 days later, I get the results with an appointment to have surgery.
Incredible.
Everything happens within a month and a week, I think. Everything. And it cost me $0, kroners, euros, whatever currency you're using, nothing.
That's insane.
And there's no insurance I have to talk to. I don't have to beg for anything.
Don't tell me anymore. I'm so jealous already. You will wait up to 6 months for an MRI appointment, and by then you're either dead or your shoulder has healed itself.
Exactly.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yes. Let's get back on track. So, Paulina, we talked about it. The first script we did for this year seemed pretty long, so we are going to do this in advance and say this is going to be a 2 episodes recording, right? So we're just going to record one today, and then we're going to record the next one next week.
Obviously, taking 3 weeks off really
nurtured your inspiration.
Made us miss the podcast, so we just dug deep into yet another topic. So it's going to be a long one. So, yeah, we're breaking it down.
And we didn't actually agree on where we're going to cut off. So I am going to cut you off at some point, and then we're just going to put a pin in that, and then that's where we continue next week.
Sounds good.
Are we ready?
Absolutely. Let's do this.
Okay, let's do this. Welcome back to
Cultures from Hell.
And a happy new year to all our listeners. So to kick off 2026 and our new season, we are shifting our focus. Last year, we explored broken systems, toxic leadership, surveillance, silence, and fear of work. So today, instead of diagnosing what's wrong, we are asking a different question. If cultures are broken, where does healing actually begin? This is a practical conversation about how real cultural change often starts with one person choosing to act differently. And as always, I have my brilliant co-host and co-founder of Culture Code Foundation, Paulina, with me to help us dive into this topic. Welcome, Paulina.
Thank you, Lars. It's good to be back here.
We are back again. And I'm just going to say, like, to my right, there's a cat sitting that hasn't seen me for a day. He's like looking at me. He might jump in front of the camera because he really wants to get cuddled. So I would excuse for everybody that's like listening in or watching on video. Okay, Paulina, let's dive into the deep end here. So zooming out on 2025, when you look back at last year, what patterns stand out to you across all these Cultures from Hell episodes? And I'm going to do that in quotation marks.
Yeah. I think what we boil down to over and over again in most of our episodes is control and missing consistency. Because that was basically, at the end of the day, I think what it boils down to in terms of where cultures go wrong. And we also see that Cultures from Hell often disguise themselves as high performance, but that underneath they are usually powered by fear and a deep need to control outcomes, people, even emotions. And at the same time, leaders that don't necessarily follow through or that don't show up consistently. And those two things combined show up as micromanagement, as silence in meetings, top-down communication with zero feedback loops, with zero follow-through, or simply rules that make it impossible to act like a human. And I very strongly believe that is exhausting for everyone. And at the same time, on the positive side of it, it also really struck me, especially when we were telling stories of live stories from listeners or friends of ours that were on the show. Even in the most rigid systems, you could see micro moments where someone chose to act with honesty or courage, and those were the moments where change started and where things started to shift within companies. So real decisions by real people can actually do so much in terms of culture, in terms of well-being, in terms of mental health for your team or the people around you. So, yeah.
Thank you for that recap. And again, like, as always, I totally agree with you that we saw all of this, but also in the midst of this again, quotation marks, chaos that we hear about, we also hear these really, really great stories.
Yes.
And we have some live guests. And again, let's encourage everybody. We're going to do that in the end, but let's, here in the middle of the podcast, let's encourage everybody that's sitting out there with a great story to reach out to us. And if you want to be on the show or just want us to tell the story, then please let us do it, because we love getting those real life stories in here.
Yes.
Is there a common lie organizations tell themselves when culture is clearly broken?
That's a really good question. And I would say the lie that I most often see in this term is that the company just needs better communication. And let me be very clear here. You don't need better, you might need better communication, but at the end of the day, you definitely need better behavior, because if it's all talk and no follow through, if you don't walk the talk, then the best communication in the world still can be put into the garbage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And bad communication is also usually just a symptom of avoidance. And what I see is that companies are really struggling with accountability, not necessarily with communication. So leaders avoid naming problems because they would have to look at their own part in it. Teams avoid hard truths because there's no safety to speak up, or also maybe because the team members aren't willing to be absolutely honest about their own part in situations. And then companies often hire a consultant to facilitate dialogue, when what we actually need is to relearn how to take ownership and how to consistently show up.
And I'm going to ask a question here. I'm kind of going off script now, because when you say like that they hire consultants to like facilitate dialogues, is that what you guys sometimes do at the Culture Code Foundation? Do you often come in when it's let's just again do this in quotation mark, when it's too late, or do you see yourself coming in an earlier stage to avoid that's going to happen?
So the beautiful thing about our company and our job is that the companies that hire us, the Culture Code Foundation, are usually companies that take the cultural topic very seriously. That does not mean that the culture can't be broken. That doesn't mean that the culture can't be toxic in with the customers that we work with. That happens. And cultures can be very dysfunctional with the customers where we work, but people really want to change it, and top people really want to change things. And I would say facilitating dialogue is part of our job, because you also need to facilitate understanding across hierarchy levels and about the realities of what's happening in a company. So, but if it stops there, that's where it becomes problematic. And what we do is we actually work with team members, with leaders, with executives to actually change behavior. So we definitely go much deeper. We go into this behavioral space because we're convinced, and the research tells us that over and time again, that culture is the it's the collective behavior within a company. So if you want to change a culture, you need to change behavior. And you can't just put new values on a wall or decide, okay, this is how we're going to behave from now on. You actually have to train people in how to do this. And I'm sure you've seen this, right? So, like in companies, those bold statements, we trust
what we preach.
We trust each other, right?
Yeah.
That's a statement, but that's a beautiful statement, but it's not an observable behavior. What does that actually mean within your specific context? How does that show up in everyday behavior? And that's that's usually the point where we really dive deep with the customer. So we do the definitions, we do the part, but then we really train people to change micro behaviors in order to actually achieve bigger change towards the culture.
And if I give you the number for the White House in the US, can you please call them up and try to change that behavior? That would be great.
I'm very sorry to tell you this, but my gut feeling is telling me that's a lost cause.
That's a lost cause. Okay, Paulina, back on track.
Please don't let me get started on that. Oh.
No, we are going to stop right here. We're going to stop right here. Let's do another podcast about that topic, because that is going to be like, we're going to crank out episodes every single day on that one.
Yeah, we probably will. And I mean, I don't want to be too pessimistic at this point, but it might be coming from a place closer to you very soon.
Hey, maybe we should do a podcast called What's Wrong with the White House? That could be great. Now, just by saying that we're going to get banned in the US now, it's going to be pulled off.
it's not like I wanted to travel there anyway anymore.
No, exactly. Okay, Paulina, back on track. What surprised you the most in all of these conversations we had the last season? Because we had a lot. We had 40 actually, 39 conversations.
Wow.
This
Yeah,
is
that's
the
true.
episode 40.
This is episode 40. Wow,
Yes.
Lars, you should have opened a bottle to celebrate this.
Yeah,
We're
at
doing
9 a.m. in the morning.
So what? It's 5 p.m. somewhere in the world.
Exactly.
And I didn't say let's open a bottle of alcohol. I just said let's open
Okay.
Could also be a bottle.
Okay. True story.
So sorry. The question was, what surprised me most in the conversations?
Yes.
How I would say how numb people have become to dysfunctional cultures and the dysfunction around them.
Back to the White House again.
Back to the White House again, yeah. I mean, there is a story that really still sits with me. A CEO from one of our customers stood in front of his entire staff and screamed at them that they were fat and lazy. And what shocked me wasn't just this behavior, it was the resigned silence that followed, right? Because everyone was like, yeah, okay, this is just another Tuesday for us. So that level of ingrained behavior or toxicity had become normalized to his staff because no one in the room had the courage or the power to interrupt this kind of behavior. So that was actually quite revealing and shocking to me. And I think we've seen this across multiple of the stories we've told here, that people just resign or get numb and don't really realize that this is not good human behavior. And at the same time, I think we've also learned, and that's maybe the beautiful surprise, there's always a choice. So sometimes the most radical thing you can do is to not play along. And sometimes walking away is the only ethical response or the most courageous response. Right? I'm not saying you always need to go into open conflict, but especially in our times that we're currently living in, I think it becomes really, really important to speak truth to power and to not just let everything sit and go uncommented, what's the word? Unchallenged.
Yeah, unchallenged. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're completely right. And again, I just have to say, I'm going to open that Pandora's box again. We are actually not talking about the White House here. This is actually another true story, but it kind of just reflects to basically what's going on in the Western world right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is, I would say, honestly say, Paulina, and this is when I see behavior like that, and I have never seen something as bad as you describe, but when I see behavior like that, it also worries me, and I actually like. I'm not the kind of person that gets scared very easy.
Yeah.
I've said so many times on the podcast, I am 6'1", I'm like 220 pounds.
You're a Viking.
Yes, I'm a Danish Viking, right? So physically, I'm a big guy, and I don't get scared too much. I've been a bouncer for like 15 years. I've seen stuff, right? So for me, it's like, well, my point here is like, again, like, but I get scared when I see stuff like that. It's not that I get scared of the guy who's bullying everybody else, but when everybody becomes numb and the power that bully has doesn't get anybody to respond. That is when I get scared.
Yeah, and it's the same for me. And yes, Lars, we need to do a second podcast. That also is what scares me, right? That and I'm convinced that the majority of people are good people, that the majority of people just want peace and quiet and safety and being able to live a good life together with their friends and their family. I'm convinced of that. I am convinced that those people who evoke the law of the jungle and believe themselves to be the biggest predator in the room, that's a minority. I'm convinced of that. And yet this kind of bullying behavior has such a huge impact on everyone around us. And that also scares me. It scares me to set precedents like that. It scares me that there is so little resistance. And especially it scares me if other people in power don't speak up against that.
100%.
And that's what we're seeing at the moment, and what we've been seeing for a couple of years now. And not just with the White House, to be honest.
No. We see it all over. It's kind of a trend going on, right?
Yeah.
So if you had to like name the root cause, and there's probably more than one. So if you had to name the root cause behind most toxic cultures, what would it be?
You know, I really love that this question actually now fits both of our podcasts.
Yes, exactly.
The conversation about company cultures just as much as the conversation about political cultures. And my answer is the same for both, actually. So the root cause that I see over and over again is unwillingness or incapability to truly, honestly self-reflect. If leaders aren't actively examining how their own behavior contributes and shapes the system, nothing changes. Culture isn't something that you can fix with a town hall. It is the emotional aftertaste of every decision you make. And most leaders are terrified to look in the mirror. And I'm also convinced that a lot of leaders don't do this anymore. They really actively avoid doing it. So, and then it becomes so much easier to restructure an entire company or government than to actually say, I've been avoiding self-reflection, I've been avoiding feedback, I've been avoiding challenging my views for years. It's like you're building a house of cards, and if you start looking at your own decisions and your own behavior, then you would cut out the foundation of your own card house, and it would all come toppling down. That's what I see a lot. And ego is a huge thing too, by the way.
Oh, that's a third podcast just talking about ego. No, so Paulina,
we need to give up our jobs just to be able to record all of these.
If there's a sponsor out there, please hook us up. Please hook us up. One of the things I often hear when we're talking about like culture and culture change and stuff like that, right? And I think like it screams in the press also sometimes, is that culture change starts at the top. And hearing that statement, where do you agree and where do you disagree?
Mm-hmm. So I think this is partially true because I believe that leaders do set the tone. And I believe that leaders have a huge influence, especially if their behavior is matching or not matching, on the other hand, to what is being propagated as the desired behaviors and the desired culture. So they are, in a way, a breaking point. But at the same time, for me, that's a dangerous half-truth. Because when we say it starts at the top, then people wait. And we've discussed this in one of the last episodes in more depth, right? But people wait for permission, a new strategy, a better boss. They just sit it out. But culture isn't a memo. It's lived and modeled behavior. So yes, leadership does matter, but change also starts at the person who refuses to gossip today. It starts with the person who decides to speak truth to power. It starts with a person that says that wasn't okay after a toxic comment. And so I'm convinced that every single person in a company has the ability to change the culture, maybe not with the same scope and scale, but every single one can have an influence. And again, this holds true for the bigger picture as well. Every single person can change things.
Mm-hmm.
And when you treat leadership as a position instead of a practice, then you kill momentum for change and you kill momentum for culture.
And
because then everyone's off the hook, right? Except the C-suite. Yeah. And honestly, they are also often the ones least willing to change. But it's also a matter of convenience. If you take yourself off the hook, if you're saying, okay, the leadership, it has to start from the top, you're giving yourself an excuse not to change anything. And that is really, really dangerous from my point of view.
Yeah, and I think, like, again, talking about the bigger picture here, we often see in countries or in companies or in communities around the world and so on, we often see that big change start as kind of a grassroots, right? A movement, something like somebody goes out, say like, hey, I'm unhappy with this situation. A lot of people join in and say like, hey, I can relate to that. And then that movement starts. Like you're saying, like we very seldomly hear that it starts from the top, because if everything is okay, then the top is not willing to change. A lot of times, if a company makes a lot of money, everything is the bank account keeps growing, the stock prices keep going up and so on, then they're like, hey, why should we change here?
Exactly.
Why should we take a hard look at if we are actually doing well? But then if somebody starts a strike, on the factory floor, then they're going to be forced into like looking at what's happening here, right?
Yeah. And look, I know this is the quote that's been overused over the years, but it's still so true. When Gandhi toppled the entire British rule over India, and he always said, be the change that you want to see in this world. And we've discussed this before as well. When you go out there and you just treat every person that you meet the way that you want to be treated, that's going to change your life dramatically, and it's going to change the life of the people that you interact with, because so many people are not used to strangers just being nice and just being considerate anymore. And we underestimate how super small gestures and behaviors can actually change things.
And that is so true.
We always think it has to be a big thing. We always think it has to come from the top. Honestly, that's a bloody excuse, and it's an excuse that we can't. Jesus, I'm really drifting into the political sphere today.
Don't do it, Paulina. Don't do it. Stay out.
But it's an excuse that we just don't afford anymore. We can't afford that anymore.
But that's not for this podcast.
No. Oh, sorry to all of our listeners.
And Paulina, do you remember? Like, I can't remember if it was the last one we did last year, or it was the second last one, that we agreed that day we will go out and we'll smile to everybody that we met. So we're gonna do the same today, and everybody's listening in. When you walk out your door, just smile to everybody. It is gonna be like a ripple effect, because you're gonna make somebody's day much better. And that person is going to smile more, and that's going to have a ripple effect. And then you're going to say, who saved the world? Paulina and Lars did.
Yeah.
Okay, Paulina, back on topic. Why do big culture initiatives so often fail in practice? We talk about like C-level right now, but is there any other insights?
So one thing that I see a lot is that culture and initiatives are kept on a meta level. So there is the idea, what kind of culture do we need, or what do we want to see here? And then often it's a top-down thing that it's been mandated from the top. And usually those are big, big words, but again, not combined with any observable behavior. And I said this at the beginning, real change only happens if behaviors change. And so you need to invest in changing behaviors. And that's something that we rarely see in change processes in general. And when it comes to culture, even less. And the second aspect, I would say, is that execs very often want transformation without giving up power or without changing their own behavior. So they oftentimes, and again, I've seen execs operating in a completely different way and taking complete accountability and so on. But in those cases, culture initiative is not going to fail, right? So we're talking about those instances where it's failing. And in those instances, I see that execs love the idea of change as long as it doesn't require themselves to shift how they behave. But you cannot outsource culture to a consultant like us and expect it to stick without doing an internal investment. So not in terms of money, but in terms of actually working on your own behaviors, your own beliefs. And you also can't rebrand your values without reworking your habits. So the real work happens when someone powerful is willing to be publicly accountable for their own part in the mess. Mm-hmm. And we've also discussed this before, not just talk about it, but then actually change behavior in the aftermath of that so that people can understand, okay, this is not just talk, this is something that the person's really serious about, and they are showing me that they've understood it, and they are showing me that they are working hard on changing. Yeah. And unfortunately, that is really, really rare, especially among C-level executives.
And going back to your Gandhi quote, do you believe, and I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you believe like a single individual really influence a culture that feels deeply broken, or is that just kind of motivational talk?
Absolutely, they can. But I want to be very, very clear. That is definitely not easy, and is definitely not always safe. But I have seen it happen. I would say in a really broken culture, to really turn things around, you do need to have some level of influence. So you need to be a team leader. You need to have connections within the company that can spread this vibe. But so in a deeply broken culture, I would say as an individual contributor, it's going to be really, really difficult. But I have seen leaders in broken cultures creating pockets of excellence with their own teams by simply being really honest. They admitted when they messed up. They asked their teams how they wanted to work. They led in a participatory way and included the opinions and the weigh-in of their team members. They created a deep sense of trust within the team. And usually, in the overwhelming majority of cases, these teams outperform every other unit in a company. And that's not magic. That's simple behavior. All of that comes down to behavior. So yes, one person can change culture, but it requires consistency, a political awareness within a company, and the willingness to sometimes be the only one holding the line.
And that's
and
that's
courage.
That's a big commitment that a lot of people is not willing to take.
Which is fair enough, right? I mean,
Yes.
especially if your job might be on the line, etc. I get that. I get that. It's difficult. But real change in difficult environments is never comfortable.
No.
And you always you have and again, it comes down to a choice.
Yeah.
You can choose to lay low and suffer and feel powerless, or you can choose to change the things that you can personally control and feel more in power, feel more in charge of your own destiny or your own career. And especially when you're a leader and you create such a pocket of excellence, boy, oh boy, can that become a moment of relief or a pocket of relief for yourself, right? If you're under constant pressure from above, and if you get that toxicity from above, but if your team then also is a toxic place, then you have no reprieve anywhere. But if you create such a pocket of excellence where there is trust, where there is humanity, where there is positive interaction, where there is a real connection to the people, then you have an oasis where you can come back to, where you can you find relief and reprieve from the rest of the company, and that can be a very beautiful thing, don't you think?
It can. It's so much can. Okay, Paulina, like one last question before we kind of cut off for today, and everybody listening in here. This is the first part of a 2-part episode, so please listen to both of them. What's the difference between responsibility on one side and agency on the other side when it comes to culture?
Oh, that's a brilliant question.
I know.
Let me try to boil this down as simply as I can. I would say responsibility is what you should do, and agency is what you can do. So, I see a lot of people confusing the two. They burn out trying to fix the culture when they don't actually have access to the levers, not levels, that matter. So that's why mapping influence is so critical. On the other hand, agency actually comes together. Agency means asking yourself, where do I have power? What can I model here that others might notice, adopt, or amplify? So my advice for leaders out there, or even individual contributors, don't carry what isn't yours, but take responsibility for what is.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a perfect segue to end this episode and leave kind of a cliffhanger for listening into the next one. Paulina, thank you so much. For everybody out there, you've been listening to Cultures from Hell. This is our first episode in 2026, and we're kind of catching up on like 39 episodes in 2025 and kind of what we learned and what we see out there. Paulina, before we go, please tell our listeners where can they find you if they have any questions about culture, behavior, and so on, and also if they want to be a part of the podcast.
Yes. So if you want to be part of the podcast, which we would love to have you here, please reach out to either Lars or me on LinkedIn. We will put our social media handles on the show notes again. And if you want to talk to me about culture, you can find me also on LinkedIn, obviously, but also at culturecounfoundation.com. And because I want to share some really exciting news about the Culture Co Foundation at this point, because Eric and I, we are very, very values driven. We are very impact driven. All we're doing is trying to make this world a better place. And we have come up with a very unique referral program that we call Culture for Good. So everyone out there, and you don't have to be our customer yourself, but everyone can refer us to companies that they know that would benefit from our programs, from our work. And if we manage to close these customers, if we start working with them, or they will start working with us, then we will donate 10% of their first year's overall revenue with us to an NGO of your choosing.
Wow, that's nice. I love it.
Right? So then that's our way of really trying to create an impact in the world, by growing our business and helping more companies, more businesses to really become positive, thriving organizations that excel with super motivated and performing employees, and at the same time making the world a better place, because we're giving so much. We're going to give so much money to NGOs that really make this place world a better place. So
I'm going to look into my network on that one.
Yes, please do. I love it. I love this. It's so we've done our research. Nobody out there is doing anything like it, and it so much fits our
Putting your mouth where your money is, right?
Yes. Otherwise, the other way around, putting the money where
putting your money where the mouth. Yeah. Fuck. I was pressing again. Oh, what a bad start to the year.
It's just really it fits our DNA so yes. Well. I don't know if anybody of our listeners actually knows that. So our company is a little bit like Patagonia or Wikipedia. So we have that in our stature, that we can't be sold, that we're not working for profit, that we're not working, that we're never going to be sold, and we're not working for any investors. So it's just Eric and me being very, very impact driven. Obviously, we don't work for free. We work for money, because we need
That is what makes the world go round, no matter how you look at it, right?
I have to pay rent, I have to pay for food, and so on and so forth. But there is a lot of sincere, value-driven, impact-driven credibility behind us, behind how we operate. And that's why we came up with this specific referral program. And I'm really, really, really excited about it, because imagine that if we manage to really, really grow, and then we can donate so much money to good causes, that's going to be freaking amazing.
Okay, Paulina, thank you very much for sharing the great news. And for everybody listening out there, then again, go to Culture Code Foundation, reach out to Paulina either on the website or through LinkedIn or Instagram. We are on Instagram again. We are not that old that we don't do that.
I don't do TikTok, but
I'm on TikTok.
You do TikTok. I don't do TikTok.
I'm actually a big thing in Denmark on TikTok when it comes to AI and automations.
I know.
Okay, cool, Paulina. Thank you very much for listening. To all our listeners, we will see you or listen to you, or however you're going to say this or frame this, next week for the second episode of our first episode of 2026.
Thank you, Lars, and thanks to everyone out there. Take care. See you next week.